As housing prices soar in China's metropolitan cities, buying an apartment is becoming a luxury many can't afford. According to new research, average home prices in Beijing jumped 66% last year, while Shanghai reported a massive 68% jump.
In big cities like Beijing, the problem isn't that people can't afford these houses, it's the fact that people here can't imagine that the price is soaring so fast and how big this bubble is. Buying a house today is like buying cabbages. More than 10 people are bidding for one house. Everyone is speculating. The bubble is really big.
Professor Yi says there is simply too much speculation occurring at the moment. And he says the booming market has also been driven by low interest rates as well as China's credit and taxation policies. Unlike in the U.S., Yi says China doesn't impose a tax on commercial real estate, and that's why many people have been taking advantage of this policy. The financial meltdown in the U.S. and more recently in Dubai were both largely fueled by the same problem, excessive housing speculation and easy credit. Well, economists have warned that if China continues on its course, disaster could strike here too.
China isn't just making the same mistakes as the U.S., but it's even worse. China has adopted a universal mortgage rate of 4.1% without discriminating against those with bad credit. In the US, although the mortgage rate is 5.3%, it can rise to as much as 9.3% for those with bad credit. So a lot of people in China will be tempted to borrow money from banks under such preferable conditions and continue to speculate.
To reduce speculation and rein in surging real estate prices, this week the government raised a key interest rate slightly for the first time in nearly 5 months. It says it also plans to curb credit for home purchases. China's housing minister Jiang Weixin says the government will further restrict credit for second home purchases and curb speculative housing investment. He adds the nation will also crack down on fake pricing and sales, as well as property hoarding by developers. But Professor Yi is not satisfied with the government's plans and says more needs to be done.
The government hasn't done enough to solve the problem of the sharp increase in housing prices. The key factor that has driven prices too highly too quickly is that the credit policy for some purchases and tax policies are too favourable. Only when these two factors have been changed can the problem of high housing prices be solved.
Professor Yi says he doesn't agree with how the government assessed the market. And he says the government believes the real estate bubble only exists in big cities like Beijing, Shanghai and Shenzhen. But he points out big cities account for over 80% of the nation's market.
If the big city markets are facing problems, that means the whole market is in trouble. The government has assumed that the soaring prices are caused by an imbalance between supply and demand. But in fact, last year, the proportion of housing investment was high. 60% of buyers bought houses for investment reasons.
Amidst the overwhelming concern from Professor Yi and others, there are a few who are more optimistic about the industry. Investor Mark Mobius at Templeton Asset Management says that though prices are high, he doesn't foresee a crash. He believes China will act rationally and not let it spin out of control. But bubble or not, many are still finding it hard to buy at current levels, especially those who are trying to get a foot on the property ladder for the first time. That will be of secondary concern to the government, though, which will be doing all it can to avoid a repeat of the problems seen elsewhere in the world. Sylvia Gunawan, BON.